Have you ever committed a grave sin? Something that you don't regret in the slightest, but you know deep down you may potentially be lynched for? I am the progenitor of such sin, so without further ado, welcome to my long-term collections journal setup, and let me introduce you to how I graffitied the out of my brand new shiny notebook. Let's do this! Whoa! Now, I can completely understand if the most pressing question on your mind right now is something along the lines of, why'd you do that? And if I had screwed this up along the way, I would probably reply with, I don't know. But for this long-term collections journal, I thought, why not try an experiment? And since it was an experiment, I forgot to film it. So unfortunately, I don't actually have any footage of the work in progress of decorating the cover and the spine. But the mindset basically came into the fact that I really like it when the spine's, detailed, and the plain blue spine is, don't get me wrong, it's nice. But say if you have, for example, this is me just being aspirational right now, 20 notebooks and 15 of them are different shades of blue, and you need to remember which one was your language learning book and which one was your daily bujo, and they all looked really similar, and there was nothing on the spines to tell them apart. You know what, I'm gonna write the name of the journal on the spines that don't have detail, because then at the very least when I see them on my shelf, I'm gonna know what they're for. And as things do, A plus B equals C equals D, that's how we got this cover here. I used a silver Ohuhu pen and a blue one as well, both metallic, so they went with the cover, and I just wrote long-term collections journal, that's what it is. Did a couple of doodles and decals to try and make it fit in with the cover, which is the really nice A5 I got in the Cottage comfort box. And by the time I was done, I've got to admit, I'm actually really happy I did this. Going forward, I can say point blank without a lick of nonsense down to whatever, this actually really did go a long way in killing that first page anxiety. Let's be honest, if you've already graffitied the cover, what's the worst that can happen? That being said, I will be completely honest, I am absolutely not intending to do this for all of my books. In fact, a lot of them might just have spine graffiti, like my brainstorming book up on the shelf. It's just I wanted to really go balls to the wall and give things a shot with this one. I'm quite happy with how it turned out. Now, the first page we flipped to is, of course, the name page, and unsurprisingly, it was the last thing that I did. I kind of have this little, mental ritual when I'm starting new notebooks, which works a treat for me because I'm really weak to my own reverse psychology for some reason. What I do is I always leave the nameplate page until last. And when I say last, I mean last out of that first initial session. Like, I wasn't going to leave it till I finished the book because I know I'd never put my name in it. But by leaving this nameplate to last, it kind of, alleviated the burden a little bit. I did sketch it in, and then, once I finished all of the other spreads, I came back and then I just wrote my name in a really fancy way and then put 2025 dash like on the cover because I don't know when this book's going to be filled. And also, for those wondering why the cover has 2025 to 20 on it, it's because I don't think I'm gonna be around in 2100, and if I am, I can tell you point blank, I'm definitely not gonna be using this notebook. The cover spread. This cover spread was what inspired the theme for the rest of the startup pages in this long-term collection journal. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not intending to fill this entire journal with a singular theme, because that would be boring. But in one big journal setup sesh, I do like to stick to a theme, so for these first 10, 14 odd pages, I didn't count, I do stick to a theme, because I like the cohesion, and I do have other pages planned in the future, which I'll probably do a video for that, and they'll all be the same theme, and it'll just keep kind of tumbling that way. It'll almost be like a fun way of being able to tell what was in different videos or stuff like that. I don't know. That's future me problem. But yeah, so the cover spread, I decided to go for a really nice homey feel. Like, I wanted the kind of style that I could open up this book now in a year's time, 2 years time, and still get that homey vibe. But also, I couldn't go too hard on the perfection wagon, because when I do that, I tend to absolutely despise my work within a month's time. It's an artist thing, man. What I went with on the front cover itself, just a door. Like, just a simple door. Don't know how else to describe it. Looks like a door. It has plants around it. What I decided to go with was a homey kind of endless line art scribble theme, because the whole point of that particular drawing style that I'm using in this theme is it is meant to be messy. It is meant to miss the lines. Like, that is the point. And when the point is to miss the lines, future me can't get their knickers in a twist. just that the line art doesn't match. Because that was the point. So yeah, I did a fancy looking door on the front cover, and I eventually pasted in long-term collections journal because I wrote a lot of the text on separate pieces of paper because I didn't want to fuck it up. I'm still getting used to calligraphy. And on the left-hand side, for the pocket, I continue the theme. So I went with like a nice, comfy little fence and some scribbly flowers and a letterbox with 25 on it because that's the year I started it. And then just in the background of the pocket, I've just got a tree and a house. Really just extending that cottage, I wouldn't even say, I wouldn't call it cottage comfort, but like that's just that general comfy vibe. However, you didn't really think that it would end there. Just a door and a fence and nothing else. Boring. If I'm gonna have a door on my front cover, I want to open that door and see what's inside. The real thing that inspired this entire setup was quite a simple concept that I was very happy to successfully execute. And that concept is doors open. You're welcome. You're welcome. Hold your applause. It's okay. I've done it. I know. I have just won the internet. You're welcome. When you open the door, on the other side, you of course have the back of the door, and then you just have the year started, 2025, and year finished. When I do finish this, or I stop using it, then I'll put the year that I stopped using it in the bottom section. And yeah, so it's just a functional door. Look, when you get to my age, your late 20s, sometimes you've just got to appreciate the little things in life. In my case, that was Ohuhu Door Opens. And yes, if my genius does in fact inspire you, you too can open a door. Seriously, steal my ideas, go for it, it's a bujo, go nuts. Over on the next page, we have the index. And I think it's safe to say, out of all of the pages in this humble little bujo, it is by far the most basic. It's an index. What are you expecting? I just did some like plant doodles along the sides, and it's a very like red, brown, green, and yellow theme going through, so you'll see these colors a lot. The blue is of course for the shadows, so you do see a lot of blues going through as well. And like for the bricks, I did actually use a stamp stencil, and I had a lot of fun doing that, but I did scuff up the sides, which is why some of you may have noticed in the opening sequence that the sides are quote-unquote gilded now. And I say quote-unquote because I just held them really tight with my fingers, and I scribbled on top of it with my silver marker because I didn't want big brown smudges down the side. The white edges were beautiful, but the brown smudges were fugly. The silver had to save the day. And it did! And yeah, and it's like I put a couple of stickers along the top alongside a couple of other doodles to kind of help, I guess, fill the space a bit, and that was really it. It's going to be used for exactly what you think it's going to be used for, helping me find where shit is. This next page was something that I knew from the start of this project that I wanted to put in here. If anything, it might even be safe to say that this page played a large role in why I wanted a separate journal for long-term collection stuff in the first place. And that is my bucket list. And that's right, it is full of all the shit I want to do before I meet my maker. All the shit I want to do within the next few 10-ish years or so, because I can tell you point blank, 20-year-old me could not at all have predicted where I am in life right now. So I'm just gonna say point blank, I have no freaking clue what 40-year-old Alex is gonna be doing, but I bet you I would probably look at him like, what the f? Yeah, 10 years ago I was an emo, now I'm a crazy cat man. Yeah, so on my bucket list, I've gone with a Dutch door style of spread. The top header is, you know, we've got the same brick pattern as others. Got a bucket, because it's a bucket list. We got some plants, vine ladders, pipes, you know, just standard, looks like outside of old house kind of vibes. And below is the 4 different categories I wanted to focus on. So it's the little section at the bottom that you can swap over. One thing I was quite proud of while working on it is when the sides, you know, push fully down, it is hard to tell there's a Dutch door, which is actually what I wanted. Because at the end of the day, I know there's a Dutch door and that's all that matters. I love hiding in plain sight. It's great. So the first 2 pages have belongings, so things I want to own. A house, a car, a motorbike, very specific sit-stand desk from Desky that's got like a waterfall emerald pattern in the middle made of walnut that's like $3,000 that I really want, but also it is $3,000. An anime figure, stuff like that. Travel, take a guess. Yeah, it's different countries I want to eventually go to. And like right now, I've just got 4 different countries because like I'm not a huge travel bug. I like the idea of traveling, yeah, of course, but I don't wake up in the morning going, man, I really want to be on a 20-hour flight right now. I'm one of those like slower moving folks where it's just like, man, I really want to go to Japan, so let's move there for 4 years. That was just an example, by the way, but it is what I did with coming to Melbourne. So yeah, in the future, maybe when I do eventually start traveling, if I do, I might start being a bit more specific with the list. I just thought it would be good to have the section, because ultimately I do want to do a bunch of cool travel sometime in the future. It's just the me of today doesn't care too much, but this is not just for the me of today, it's also for the me of tomorrow. So I've just got Japan, England, Scotland, New Zealand, because they've got the Hobbit town, and that's about it for now. But like, honestly, I'd just be happy to go anywhere. I'm real chill. And then when you flip over the page, I've got short-term and long-term goals. So it's split up between 0 to 3 years and 3+ years. And what that basically means is if I believe I can achieve the goal in under 3 years, I'd stick it on short-term goals. But if I think that is definitely a goal that will take at least 3 years to achieve, then it goes under long-term goals. Granted, at the end of the day, if I achieve it in a different time period, it doesn't matter, it's on the list. But like, that's how I sort it to keep my brain happy. I would like to preface before getting into the next section that this is a spread dedicated to hopes, dreams, and achievements, aka stuff I want to achieve before I'm a corpsicle. I have assigned 6 different items to be my hopes, dreams, goals, achievements, milestones of the future. The first one on the list is buy a car, and I suppose the 4th one or 5th one would be a subdivision of that first one, which is buy a motorbike. And the reason I'm bundling together is they are both forms of transportation that is not public transportation. And not to know public transportation is fantastic, but also I grew up in a Western society where having a car was the equivalent of being an adult, and I still do not know how to drive because that's just how the cookie crumbled. So the reason they are on my page as massive milestones is both of them require me to get my license to the level that I could get a car and actually use it, or get a bike and use it. I need to get either my Ps or a motorcycle license first before I can even consider going down one of those 2 routes. The second goal I have on my hopes, dreams, aspirations, milestones page is buy a house, because ain't that the American dream? Okay, which is basically a way of like, I'd like to own a home. That sounds really cool. I've rented my entire life, but of course, one day I'm going to be a crunchy old fella, crunchier than I am now, and I am absolutely gonna want to own my own home so that I can do whatever I want with it. My dream house is a double-story house because I like the idea of, you know, I like heights, so I'd love to live in a 2-story house one day. And yeah, it's not like the most pressing dreams and aspirations that need to happen now, god damn it. This is all stuff that I really don't mind happening within the next few years to the decade or whatnot. So like, I'm not expecting to buy a house within the next few years, to be completely honest. It would take an actual miracle level opportunity or lottery win to get that. No, that's a long-term goal, but it's something I'm aiming at, so that every day that I attend my day-to-day corporate slavery, I remind myself what I am hoping to achieve in this life. House! The third goal on my life goals list is definitely something that's more unique, I guess, to my special interests. And by that I'm saying it is unique specifically to being a VTuber or a virtual YouTuber or a role-playing as an anime man on the internet for the hee-hee-ha-has. That is, I would really love at some point in my life to experience what it is like to be a corporate VTuber. For those who aren't aware of what that is, and I wouldn't blame you, basically they're a very exclusive group of VTubers or content creators who have been hired on by large corporations to essentially professionally represent them, and it's kind of the equivalent of like, it's like getting a label to sign you on as a musician. It's kind of the gold standard goal. It's what a good chunk, no, but like a good chunk of aspiring VTubers aimed to get. They want to be signed on by a corporation so that their career can go Wii U. And I would love to experience that because I'm an ambitious, gritty little turd who wants to experience all of the experiences. So yeah, that's why that's on there. But it's also on there because, bro, the likelihood of that happening, like, that's lottery level bullshit. So so like, that would be nice, but like, I'm not expecting the stars to align anytime soon. And speaking on expecting the stars to align, the fourth goal I have on here is more specific to this channel rather than my secret, not so secret weeb activities. I would love to one day reach 100k subs. I think that just sounds really cool. And is that not what many of us aspiring content creators look at? We see the silver play buttons and our minds go, oh, won't they? So that's goal number 4. And of course, number 5, motorbike, which is a subdivision of A. And number 6 is I would like to go to Japan. And out of everything on this list, it is probably the most achievable goal I've got there. With, I guess, the motorbike coming in as a close second. I put that on there mostly because I had, like, originally I was going to have 5 on this page, and then I ended up realizing I didn't need to put a title in if I was going to have milestones on the next page. So I kind of was like, oh crap, I've got an extra space now. I need to come up with something. And ever since I was a little kid, I'd always wanted to go to Japan. It's never been the most pressing desire in the world, and you can tell that by the fact that I'm 30 and I haven't been there yet. No, I lie, I'm still 29. But, like, but I would like to go one day. So, like, that's kind of an homage to Baby Me. It's ironically the oldest goal on this list. And yeah, so those are the 6 life goals I would like to achieve at some point. However, I wouldn't be mad if I got a car and didn't get a motorbike, or vice versa, because you don't really need to have both. I'd probably only get the second one if I had the first one, if I also bought a house, because then I have a place to put it. Yeah, hopes and dreams, baby. And of course, on the right side of the page, we have milestones, or achievements. There are many ways of saying it, but basically, if the left side is dedicated to things I want to do eventually one day in the future, the right side is dedicated to things that I have done. So any time that I have achieved something that I guess, like, I recognize as a major event, I'm going to put it down in milestones. Even though there are a lot of things I've experienced in my life that when I would consider major milestones, I don't remember the exact dates for all of them, and also I don't want to backdate it too far because it almost kills the point of it starting in 2025. So I've just put one milestone on there, which was the last major milestone that I achieved, and that milestone was in October last year. I got my first raise and promotion at work at the same time. It was actually really cool. I wasn't expecting to hit like a double milestone, but like the cards just fell in a really nice spot, and I was very grateful for it. So I started off the list because I think that's a really cool way to start it, starting off with kind of the level of achievement. So I'm not expecting to fill in my milestones page very often. I'm only really expecting to maybe revisit this at most every few months, but likely only a couple of times a year, because when I'm thinking of like major milestones, like these have to be the kinds of things that I am ticking off the psychological bucket list. That's when I'd put it in milestones. But if it's just like, I cooked dinner for myself tonight, I'm sorry, but you don't qualify. And of course, when it comes to detailing both pages, I went with some diagonal brick spreads, some washi tape, and another scribbly doodly plant to really keep that homey vibe homeying. Now this next page is 100% stuff that I came up with for me. And these things are a phase tracker and a bookshelf that I intend to fill with all of my shiny notebooks. I'd say it's to keep me accountable, but if anything, it's just so I can look at it and go, shiny notebooks. But that's not the one that you'd have questions about. The notebook collection page is incredibly straightforward. Get new shiny notebook, draw in shiny notebook. It's the phase tracker that's unique on this spread. Now, what is a phase tracker, Mr. Alex? It's a page dedicated to my obsessions and how long they last. I guess another way to call it would be something like a hyperfocus tracker. Basically, I am the kind of person where when I get into something, I get into something. I obsess about it like an absolute nutter for like 6 to 12 months. Then, like a fat dragon who has eaten his fill, I dust my fingers and go, well, that was a good meal, and I move on to the next one. Not everything falls under this lore. I have been, say, VTubing for 3 years, for example, and trying to work on a novel for 10. You don't want to know how many times I've rebooted that thing. I don't want to know either. But a good chunk of my interests are, at the very least, cyclical. And that's what I want to track here. So, since I wanted to start off this year, I'm not going to stick my old phases in because I don't know when they started and when they ended. I've just got vague ideas. So, I've put in the 2 things that my brain is like running around like a headless chipmunk about, so that I can keep a good track of them and see how far the haha goes. The first box is dedicated to Archer and Olive notebooks. If you couldn't tell, I'm hyper-focusing on them a little bit right now. Just a little bit. If you can't tell, I really like their shiny notebooks right now. And the second thing I've put on here is my current favorite webcomic of all time, the one, the only, Greatest Estate Developer, because holy it is the funniest thing I have ever read in my life. Be gone, beautiful protagonists. I raise you with the ugliest man in existence. If that thought alone catches your interest, I'd really recommend reading it. It's a really good comic. And the plan going forward is anytime I find myself enter a new quote-unquote phase, so a new special interest basically, what I'll do is I will just write the name of it in there. I'll put the month and year when I started it, and when I do find myself just lose interest, or knowing me to likely be a month or 2 after I lose serious interest that I can catch on to the fact that I don't really give much of a shit anymore, that's when I'd probably put an end date in here, and then that way if I ever do re-enter the phase, it gets a new box, a new suitcase, a new baggie. And I thought it would be really cool to set up the page as if it was some kind of storage closet. I figured it'd just look cool, it fits the homey vibe. So each box, suitcase, etc. represents what would be a different phase or hyperfocus. And since I'm usually in like 1 or 2 max phases at a time, and they tend to last 6 months to a year each, depending on, and this is like on average, I don't think I will fill this up for a good while. So that's why I was pretty generous with the boxes, and if I ever do fill this up, I can just make another one down the line. That's the great thing about a long-term collections journal, it doesn't expire. This next spread is a way for me to keep track of the media that I love. I will admit I was a little bit struggle core with the categories, to the point that a couple of them had been changed a couple of times as I tried to bend my mind around what I should call them. But the 5 categories that I did ultimately settle on are webtoons for the big one, because I read a lot of webcomics, anime for like the medium one, then I've just got shows, fanfics, and creators / other. So like there's a creator I'm focusing on, or if there's something that doesn't fit in any of the other categories, it would fall in there. And the reason I didn't give a lot of space to the 3 that are on the bookshelf is quite simply because I'm only gonna put stuff on my god tier favorites page when I consider it a god tier favorite. The stuff that I am putting in here has to be the kind of stuff that I would unironically ramble about to hell and back for a very long period of time. For example, I have read hundreds of thousands of fanfics in my time, but only 3 stood out to me so much that I am willing to go back and reread them now, even though I do not give much of a shit about the original source material anymore. That's what I call a god tier fanfic. Shows, they're the kind of shows where even well after my hyper-focus period has ended, a new season comes out and I will immediately go out of my way, jump back into the fray and get straight back into the fandom because I love the show that much. Like, I really like Good Omens, I think it's great. Same thing with anime. Now, like, I will admit, I haven't filled up my anime list very well. That's kind of a budding one. Like, I've always been a bit of a weeb my whole life, but like, the anime that I used to hyper-focus on really hard, it's been a long time since I've had like an anime that I've been balls to the wall about, and I didn't really want to put in like Naruto because like that was something I was absolutely feral for when I was 16. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not 16 anymore. Feels a bit redundant putting in old stuff. Same like, you know, Voltron and a few other things like that. And of course with webtoons, literally I read loads of webtoons. To get on this list, the webtoon has to be so good that I actively pester my friends to go and read it. And there are not that many webtoons I've read where my instinctual reaction is not to just be like, damn, that's a damn good read. My initial reaction is, hey, have you read it? You've got to read it. Please read it. I need to talk about this with somebody. Only a god tier webtoon gets that reaction. And that's the whole point of this spread. And I thought it would be cool to go with like, you know, plants and scrolls and a shell theme because it just fits the rest of the homey vibe. And I don't know, it's just good vibes, man. And finally, this last spread is dedicated to my precious little meow meows. On the left hand side, I've got pictures of my cats Comet and Asta, and I've got their birthday, the date that I adopted them, and a medical history, since those are things I actually genuinely need to keep track of. Now with medical history, I'm not including vaccinations. I do keep track of them elsewhere. It's mostly major stuff, so like major surgeries, if they've had any accidents, the kind of significant stuff that if you take them to a vet, you have to just be upfront of like, yeah, I know that like she's bungled her hip, but like she did have her angle glands removed a couple years ago, so if you see any scars there, like, you know, that's why, and stuff like that. So right now, Comcom's the only thing with something in her medical history because she had her butt glands removed, and that is why I affectionately have nicknamed her the Golden Ass, because you don't want to know how much that ass has cost me. I adore that cat to hell and back though, I don't regret it for a damn second, but damn! I used a little bit of the washi tape I was using throughout the design, just had the hanging signs, and the same scribble border as I've got on the rest. On the right hand side, I've got some trackers. These are specifically cost trackers. So what I'm doing with them is I'm just going to be going in and in my itty bitty font, keeping track of when I get litter and how much it cost. When I get food, how much I cost. And the reason that I am putting them in trackers is I bulk buy. So I don't tend to get like one bag of kibble and have it last a week. I tend to get like 15 kilos of science diet and it'll last me a couple of months. Same goes with litter trays. I tend to get like a good chunk in one go. This way it kind of helps me keep track of them over the long term, so I get get an idea of not only how much I'm spending, but how often I'm spending it. And anything other is just any other expenses. So I'd be like vet expenses, cat toys, cat accessories. It literally is just anything that isn't litter or food would fall under that third category. And yeah, that brings us to the end of our long-term journal collection setup thingamajiggy. I suppose, like I've said before, the whole purpose of this journal, it's meant to last over the long term. Things I put in here is stuff I either want to reference over the long term, so like, for example, my cat's medical history, or shows and media that I really love that I might want to come back to in 2-3 years time when I'm like, man, I really want to go back to an old favorite. Stuff like that. Other things in here are things like goals and bucket lists, the kind of stuff that I know kind of go beyond a daily bujo. I'm not gonna put buy a house in my daily bujo when like I'm living paycheck to paycheck right now, when I'm not rolling around on Money Mountain. It's stuff like that that I'm putting in this book. I am eventually planning on adding some trackers from like my art hoard and general collection logs and like what I have, what I'm getting rid of, I will keep expanding it with more and more stuff, but for now, for a start, it's now got in there the main stuff I really wanted, like now, like the stuff I wanted to reference now, you know what I mean? And it was nice finally being able to get these big goals in my head out of my head and onto paper. And since I have graffitied the cover as well, it makes it less intimidating to use. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for joining me for my humble little video today. I truly appreciate your company as I ramble on about my little side hobby over here. And if you found yourself enjoying my content, inspired by my content, feeling supportive, no matter what it is, please don't hesitate to drop a cheeky little like and subscribble. It'll go a long way in helping me reach my goal of the big silver play button. A man can dream, and don't forget to ring that bell, ding! And my next video is also going to be productive. That's right, I do things sometimes. So my next video will actually be my February bujo setup, and I can tell you now, the theme I have locked in is koi pond. So if you want to see what I do with that, well, I guess you're just gonna have to stick around now, aren't you? Not that I want you to or anything, but baka. I'm sorry, that was really cringe, wasn't it? And of course, don't forget to drop a little dad joke in the comments. I loved all the dad jokes you gave me last time. They made me giggle and my boss looked at me weird. Without further ado, thanks again for watching, I truly appreciate it, and now I'm gonna stop my cat from wrecking my house and bid you adieu. Good night! Or morning, or afternoon, or evening, I don't know what time it is where you are.